Hi everybody. Today we're going to be painting with artist grade acrylic paint, and we're going to be using titanium white, carbon black, pyro red, sienna, cadmium yellow, buff, hooker's green, and sap green. And I would suggest watching this video through the entirety just to get a idea of how I'm painting, and then you can stop along the way as you go and catch up to whatever I'm doing. So I have a bristle brush here, and I already put on a layer of the sap green, a little bit of hooker's green, some titanium white, or you can also use the buff color, and kind of modeled the background. That's what I want. I want more of the emphasis to be on the flower and the hummingbird. So I just wanted that background kind of blurred out looking. It's representing foliage in the background, but you can't really distinguish what it is. Kind of like what you see in a lot of photographs where you see the background is blurred. So just put it on, swish it around, model it, and then make sure you give it a good dry before you continue. Now I've also sped up this video a little bit because I'm watching TV while I'm doing this, so I'm just relaxed, taking my time, and I know there's quite a few areas where I'm just sitting there wondering what to do next. So I tend to like to put a base coat of, this is a little bit of green with buff color. You could use titanium white also. And I'm just basically filling in the whole area of the hummingbird and the flower with this one color, because my background is so dark that it can be a little difficult putting in the lighter colors. So in doing this, it makes it much easier. The colors are more vibrant and the true to color, and you don't have to paint over things 3 times to get the right color. Now you can use the reference photo and just trace the reference photo onto your background if you don't want to try just drawing the image out the way I did with paint. That's fine. This was a fairly simple image, so I thought I would just try and do it with the paint. So now I'm just mixing up kind of a muddy color again. Their wings are flying, so you're not seeing the definite shape or color of those wings flapping. So you kind of want to give an impression of a wing blurred out. So that's why I'm using this color and doing the strokes that I've done. Just very loose, but you still want to pay attention to the direction that the wing is going in. And I don't want it too opaque either, because you're seeing through this wing, so to speak, when it's moving so fast. You're seeing the background as well as the wing, so you want to give that impression. This wing was a little bit more defined, I guess you could say. The top part anyways, where the shoulder of the wing is, and just again, I'm just putting a little bit of the carbon black with that muddied up color just to put it in kind of a middle tone. And I use a lot of water on these because a lot of this is done with a little bit more than a glazing look to it, so I don't want it totally opaque in some areas. I want it just glazed on, because I still want to see some of the background showing through my paint layers. So this is the a little bit of the sap green with some titanium white and a little bit of yellow. I want it that beautiful green color that these hummingbirds are. It's almost a sap green, but it's got that two-tone look to it. So I thought I would put the sap green with a little bit of titanium and a little bit of yellow just to yellow it up a little bit, make it a little more brighter. And it's mostly on the back part of the bird, the belly of the bird in the chest area and under the throat. This is probably a female because it doesn't have the ruby throat. And it's a little bit greener on the back side of it. So I did put a little bit more of a darker color now, and if you notice, I'm just tapping with my brush. This is a 1/4 inch flat angled brush, and I don't want to make brush marks. I just want to make dabs, so kind of stamping marks. And my brush is fairly dry. I don't have a lot of water on it, so I get this irregular look of the bristles, and that way it kind of represents the shape of those tiny little feathers. So again, you just pay attention to shapes and where certain areas are a different color, or maybe it's shadowed. Look at the shape of the shadowed area and concentrate on that. Painting and drawing is all about shapes, and it's much easier to see properly as an artist when you keep it in your head that you're only looking at the shape, not that this is a wing or this is a flower or this is a petal. You're looking and thinking of them as shapes, and it's a whole lot easier to draw and paint when you find that magical ability to see everything in shapes. So now I'm just putting in a very watered down mix of that gray color again over top of the white. And as you can see, the white is still shining through, but the gray is giving that look of roundness to the belly of that bird, and it just gives it more dimension. Now I'm putting a little bit of an orange color on the belly as a glaze, again, very transparent, watered down. And it isn't that the bird is that actual color, it's that the light is reflecting off of the flower onto the light colored underbelly of that bird. So we want to represent that as a cast highlight, so to speak. And Posca pen, you gotta love Posca pens for the very tiny areas, which you will see in a lot of these 5x5 mini canvases that I'll be doing. I use a lot of Poscas for very fine detailed work. So I lightened that area. That was a highlight area beside his wing and eye there. So you got to do those light lights and dark darks. So a lot of birds have kind of a little bit of an eyelid around their eye, and it's usually got some highlights on it or little speckles, and that's really important to put in because it makes your eye look so realistic. So that's what I was doing here, is just adding that little bit of white or lighter areas around the eye. And then there's a little bit of a shadowed area also because of the way this hummingbird is facing. The light is behind him, so you're getting more of a shadow on the beak and on the front part of the head. So just add a little bit of a glazing again, just a glaze, and I'm dabbing on the head so it gives the look of feathers. So you're going to have some fairly tiny brushes. I would suggest around 0 or a number 1 for these tiny little areas. You could do it with, say, a 2 and a 4 if you have a very pointed, a nice point to your brush. There are some really nice ones out there, so you'll have to experiment with that. So now I'm going to do a little bit more glazing on that belly area, and then probably I'll start doing, he has iridized feathers, so they have in certain lights this really vivid bright color, and this one has that bright vivid green. And I'll just put a few dabs on his back and his head area. So you have to make sure that it's the right shade of green and light enough. Don't put too many in because then it'll look a little odd because it is speckled. And a little bit of shadow again. It's kind of a back and forth. You can go for a coffee, come back, and you'll see, oh, maybe I should darken that even more. I find a lot of artists are a little bit cautious about how deep a shadow to go, and they tend to go in layers, and that's fine because then it's a whole lot easier to add some than to take away. And now just a nice bright yellow. So this is a Cad Yellow with a little bit of titanium white. And I'm just flicking it inwards to the center of the flower. So I want more of the bright yellow on the tips of this. And then as you can see in the photograph there, the inside flaring out is kind of a reddish orange color, and I don't dry this between the colors because I want them to mix a little, but I don't use a lot of stroking, so you don't want to stroke it so much that the two colors mix totally. And you kind of go back and forth from the yellow to the orange. And I'm paying attention to the way I guess there's little wrinkles in the petals of the flower, and you have to pay attention to that, and use your brush strokes to represent those creases and stuff in the petals of those flowers. So again, dabbing the center of the flower is got a lot of stamens in it, and you want that represented with little dabs. And there's quite a few different values in the center. So there's a deep color, there's a light color, and you have to kind of play with that a little bit with your brush strokes and your colors. Here I'm actually using a rake brush, and I just took away a little bit, and now I'm adding a little bit more of that, more red than orange, just to darken the very center of that red area. Adding a little bit of lighter color under the flower for now, and then I'll darken it later with a little bit of shadow. But because I have the dark background, you have to pay attention to, is it going to show up if I paint it this color or this value? You might have to either change the color of the stem, or you can change around the stem in the background color. Alright, so I've looked at this and decided that the head and the beak area was just a bit too similar with the background value, so I'm just lightening the area with a little bit more of a lighter green. And you can do this. Doesn't matter you know, what stage of the painting you're at. You can always play with lighting or shadows when it comes to the backgrounds, especially this type of background. Now if you had, you know, trees and stuff like that, then you do have to take that in consideration, because you don't want to have to repaint that whole thing. But blurred out sections like this, these are awesome for beginners, because it is so easy to change the values very easily without having to do a whole lot of work. So I'm just brightening up the yellow color here. I wanted it to be a little bit brighter, so I'm just adding straight cadmium yellow to this, and then it's a fairly transparent color to begin with, so I didn't add any white to it because I already had a color similar to it. So it's just basically brightening up the area of those little petals. Just fixing a little eye there. It needed a little glint. And that, it's just funny how that one little speck finishes and makes an eye look so realistic. Oh, put a little on that wing there. I didn't want that to happen. So again, here I am brightening up an area. So I hope you'll give this a try. this one was surprisingly easy, so I really hope you'll try it. It's not that difficult. All in all, it probably took me an hour to do. So watch through the videos, stop the video, try and catch up, and you may have to do this a couple times. If you're new at this, don't beat yourself up if it doesn't turn out right the first time. Sometimes it takes a few times. If you want, you could do this on paper and practice first before you put it on a canvas, but these canvases are very inexpensive and you can always gesso over top and try again. And actually, the more paint you put on a canvas, the better it is to paint on, because you're filling the tooth of the canvas and you don't have to worry about that grain showing through. So I'm just touching up little areas here and there, defining some edges, maybe adding a little bit more shadow in areas. I always do this in the end, just clean up little areas that might benefit with a little bit darker or a little bit lighter. And I would suggest putting your canvas away for a day or two and then coming back to it, and you will see areas that you can improve upon by doing little bits and pieces like this. And there, I'm done. Sign it, and hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you give it a try.